The bulb above my head flickered for the 1,000th time, blinking incessantly above the dusty shelves of cell phone cases and forgotten electronics. Day 37. I'd been marking them on the back wall of the electronics store with a Sharpie I'd found in the manager's desk, right next to a half-eaten bag of Skittles and a family photo I couldn't bring myself to look at anymore. The ham radio setup sprawled across what used to be the store's counter, a mess of wires and jerry-rigged batteries I'd salvaged from abandoned cars. The old Motorola receiver had become my closest companion, its gentle static a constant reminder that we weren't completely alone in this dead world. Every night, I cleaned its connections with alcohol wipes, checked the antenna alignment, and prayed to whatever God might still be listening. That's when I heard it. Through the white noise, a pattern emerged. Familiar dots and dashes that made my heart skip. My hands shook as I fumbled for the notepad, its pages already filled with weeks of nothing but random interference and distant screams. The pencil nearly broke as I decoded it. SOSWH, secure bunker storm breach. My throat went dry. The White House. After all this time, someone was still alive in the heart of D.C. Kate, Marcus, everybody! I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. We'd learned the hard way about making noise. The basement's heavy metal door creaked open, and they emerged from the darkness of the storage room we'd converted into sleeping quarters. Kate, our medic, still wore her blood-stained scrubs from that last day at Georgetown Hospital. The ID badge dangling from her neck was cracked, but you could still make out her tired smile in the photo. Marcus moved like he always did, like a coiled spring ready to snap. 30 years of Marine Corps training lives on even after the world ends. We'd started as 8. I glanced at the wall where I'd hung their badges, Todd's police shield, still caked with Baltimore grime, and the matching EMT patches from the twins. Amy and Angela. They'd died holding hands in Richmond, refusing to leave each other even at the end. The remaining 5 of us gathered around the radio, our flashlight beams crossing like searchlights on the concrete floor. We all remembered when it started. The storms had rolled in from the Atlantic, unlike anything the meteorologists had ever seen. The clouds twisted and writhed like living things, shot through with veins of sickly green lightning. Nobody understood why some people changed and others didn't. Why your neighbor could be fine one minute and something else the next. Rachel checked her rifle for the 100th time that day, the familiar click-clack of the bolt action echoing in the basement. The scope was still wrapped in the red bandana she'd torn from her brother's shirt before we had to leave him behind. "It's a 3-day walk to D.C., she said, her voice hollow. If we're lucky." "If we're lucky," I echoed, watching shadows dance across the wall of our concrete sanctuary. Luck. I almost laughed. Luck had died with the power grid, with the internet, with the last helicopter we'd seen flying overhead 3 weeks ago. But maybe, just maybe, this signal meant something different, something like hope. Outside, the wind howled through the empty streets of what used to be Arlington, carrying with it the distant sounds of a world we no longer recognized. We had 3 days of walking ahead of us, 3 days of avoiding the things that used to be people, 3 days to reach the White House, assuming we survived that long. I shouldered my pack, heavy with spare radio parts and batteries. Someone in the White House was still alive, still fighting. And in this new world, that meant something. It had to. Interstate 95 stretched before us like a museum of America's last day. Thousands of cars frozen in their final, desperate moments. Doors flung open, personal belongings scattered across asphalt. Child car seats empty save for abandoned teddy bears, stained dark with something we tried not to think about. The morning sun caught the dew on windshields, creating a sea of glinting mirrors that made my eyes ache. We moved between the vehicles in practiced formation. Marcus led, his rifle scanning methodically from car to car, while Rachel ghosted between shadows 20 yards ahead. The smell was the worst part, not just decay, but that sickly, sweet chemical odor that meant the altered had been here recently, like burning plastic mixed with copper pennies. I remember the last time I saw Rachel alive. She was adjusting her brother's bandana, now serving as a makeshift sweatband. 2 minutes, she whispered, pointing to an overturned fuel tanker ahead. I'll circle wide, make sure it's clear. Her boots made no sound as she disappeared between a crushed minivan and a delivery truck still advertising fresh bread daily. The scream came exactly 117 seconds later. I know because I counted every single one, frozen in place, watching Marcus's white-knuckled grip on his rifle. It wasn't a normal scream. It started as one, human and terrified, but twisted into something else, something that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. When it finally stopped, the silence felt like a physical weight. We found a rifle, the scope still wrapped in that red bandana, now darker with fresh stains. The approach to Washington, D.C. was a descent into madness. The great city rose from the horizon like a broken tooth, familiar landmarks transformed into monuments of destruction. The Capitol dome, that symbol of democracy I'd seen in 1,000 photos, had split like an eggshell. Half of it lay crumbled across the National Mall, crushing the gardens beneath tons of shattered marble and twisted steel. But it was the Washington Monument that stopped us cold. Physics seemed to have taken a holiday. The great obelisk leaned at a 45-degree angle, defying gravity itself. Yet it didn't fall. The tip disappeared into the roiling clouds above, as if holding up that perpetually dark sky. Kate whispered something about structural impossibility. Marcus just crossed himself, something I'd never seen him do before. Quinn's end started with a twitch. We were picking our way through the skeletal remains of a tourist bus when his left hand began to spasm. At first, he tried to hide it, stuffing the hand into his pocket, but within an hour, his veins had turned black, visible through increasingly translucent skin. "My little girl," he said suddenly, his voice already changing, becoming hollow like wind through an empty tunnel. "She'd be turning 6 next week. I promised her." He pulled out a small birthday card from his breast pocket, the edges worn from constant handling. "Don't let me become one of them. Please." Marcus did it quickly, professionally. One muffled shot. We buried the birthday card with him, under a cherry tree still stubbornly clinging to life near the mall. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the rustle of dead leaves. and the distant echo of things moving through the ruins of our nation's capital. That night, as we huddled in the back of an abandoned postal truck, I caught Marcus cleaning his pistol with mechanical precision, his hands shaking almost imperceptibly. Some burdens, I realized, are heavier than others. The White House loomed before us like a desecrated church. 2 centuries of history buried under weeks of nightmare. The marble columns I remembered from school field trips were now stained with dark streaks, as if the building itself was bleeding. Through my scope, I could see bodies scattered across the lawn, suits and ties marking them as staff who never made it out. "Movement, 2nd floor," Marcus whispered, his military-trained eyes catching what I'd missed. A curtain had shifted in the Oval Office window. Not the shambling motion of the infected, but the deliberate peek of someone alive, someone hiding. We crossed the south lawn in bursts, using the abandoned security vehicles as cover. The grass crunched under our boots, brown and dead like everything else in this city. Kate spotted the service entrance first, a maintenance door partially hidden behind a toppled Marine One helicopter. Its rotors were bent like broken fingers, reaching toward a sky that hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. The door's keypad was dead, but Marcus made quick work of it, with tools he'd rather not explain where he got. The hinges screamed as we pushed it open, the sound echoing through empty corridors. Every government building had its own smell, that mix of old paper and authority. But now it was tainted with something else, something rotten. The stench was a mix of mildew, decomposition, and something else, a chemical undertone that made my eyes water. Our flashlight beams cut through decades of presidential history turned nightmare. Torn paintings of former leaders stared down at us from gold-leafed frames, their eyes somehow accusing in the dim light. A Reagan portrait had been slashed, leaving canvas strips that fluttered in our passing like dying breaths. "Clear," Marcus whispered, checking another ornate room. The blue room wasn't blue anymore. The famous curtains were stained dark with what looked like handprints, too many to count. A crystal chandelier lay shattered across an antique table, its pieces catching our lights like fallen stars. We moved as a unit toward the Oval Office, where we'd seen the movement. The iconic room was a museum of chaos. The resolute desk had been pushed against the door as a barricade, but someone, or something, had broken through. Papers covered the floor ankle-deep, classified documents mixed with personal letters and executive orders. A diet soda still sat on the desk, condensation having long since left a ring on the historic wood. What caught my attention was the wall opposite the desk. There, perfectly aligned and somehow untouched amid the destruction, hung the infamous mugshot. President Trump's defiant expression stared out from behind pristine glass, a stark contrast to the surrounding devastation. It felt almost like a message. Even in this apocalypse, some things refused to fall. That's when we heard it, a rustling from behind the heavy curtains. Marcus raised his rifle, and Kate gripped her medical bag tighter. The fabric moved again, and a figure stumbled out. It was a woman in a torn blazer, her White House ID badge still clipped to her lapel. Sarah Reynolds, executive assistant to Dr. Alexandra Wright. "Don't," she croaked, holding up hands that trembled violently. "Please, I'm still me, but I don't have long." Her left eye was completely black, veins spreading across her face like dark lightning. "Dr. Wright, she's below. The bunker. She needs—" Sarah's words dissolved into a series of spasms. Marcus moved faster than any of us could react. He caught her as she fell, one hand covering her mouth to muffle the screams we knew were coming. Kate rushed forward with a syringe, morphine, the last of our supply, a mercy we couldn't always afford. We made our way deeper into the building's guts, following Sarah's final directions. The grand staircase was blocked by collapsed masonry, forcing us into the narrow service corridors. Emergency lights cast sickly red glows every 20 feet, powered by a generator system we could hear humming somewhere below. A photograph caught my eye, taped to a wall at knee height. It showed the president at his desk, surrounded by his grandchildren, all smiles and golden hair. The date stamp showed 3 days before everything went wrong. I touched it gently, then wished I hadn't when I noticed the bloody fingerprints along its edge. The path to the bunker was a gauntlet of security checkpoints. Each one showed signs of desperate fighting. Shell casings littered the floor, brass winking in our flashlight beams. Bodies in Secret Service suits lay where they'd fallen, each one facing outward, defending until the end. Their weapons were missing, scavenged by survivors. "Motion," Kate whispered, pointing ahead. Through the reinforced glass of a security station, a figure in a hazmat suit was methodically checking monitors. The suit was torn at the shoulder, revealing healthy skin beneath. A survivor, not one of the altered. We approached carefully, weapons ready. The figure turned, raising empty hands. Through the scratched faceplate, a woman's eyes widened in recognition. "You received the signal," she said, her voice muffled by the suit. "I'm Dr. Wright's assistant, the other one. There are 16 of us left. The president—" She paused, swallowing hard. "You need to see this for yourself." She led us through a maze of corridors designed to disorient intruders, past rooms filled with servers still blinking with unknown purpose. The temperature dropped as we descended, the air becoming thick with the taste of filtered oxygen. A final security door stood before us, its surface marked with deep gouges as if something had tried to claw its way in. The security door hissed open on hydraulic hinges, releasing a burst of pressurized air. The bunker beyond was a stark contrast to the chaos above. Pristine, organized, and humming with power. Banks of monitors lined the walls, each displaying different parts of the ruined city. Folks, come in," President Trump called out, standing tall in his signature suit and red tie. "You wouldn't believe what we've discovered. It's tremendous, really tremendous." He gestured to Dr. Wright and the assembled staff. "We have the best people here, absolutely the best. They've been working around the clock. And let me tell you, what we found, nobody's ever seen anything like it. Despite everything we'd been through, his commanding presence filled the room just as it always had. If anything, the apocalypse had only heightened that larger-than-life quality about him. Dr. Wright," he nodded to the scientist, "let's show them. But first," he held up a finger and walked behind the thick ballistic glass barrier. "Safety first, Wright. We're doing this perfectly safe. Nobody does safety better than us." Dr. Wright nodded to 2 Secret Service agents wearing protective gear. Trump leaned forward, speaking into the intercom. "Watch this. You're gonna love this. It's like nothing you've ever seen before." The agents returned, struggling with something that used to be human. The creature thrashed against its restraints, skin mottled with that familiar black webbing of infection. The smell hit us even through the air filtration system. That sickly sweet chemical rot we'd come to associate with the altered. "You see this guy?" Trump gestured at the infected. "Nasty person, very nasty. But watch what happens. It's beautiful, really beautiful." The agents released the creature. It immediately charged toward Trump with impossible speed, teeth bared in that familiar attack pattern we'd seen claim so many lives. But 3 feet from him, it stopped dead in its tracks. Not because of any restraint. The agents had let go, but as if it had hit an invisible wall. "Would you look at that?" Trump said, actually stepping closer to it. "They hate it. They absolutely hate it. Can't get near me. We tried it with hundreds, maybe thousands of them. Same thing every time." The creature screamed in frustration, a sound that made my teeth vibrate and my vision blur. It tried again and again to reach the president, each time hitting that invisible barrier. Trump didn't just stand his ground. He seemed to be enjoying himself. "You know what I told Dr. Wright here?" He gestured to the scientist. "I said, Doc, maybe this is why I was chosen for this moment. Nobody else has this. Believe me, we tested it. All the other world leaders, gone. Sad, very sad. But me?" He spread his arms wide. "Total immunity, and not just immunity. Watch what happens next." The creature's flesh began to visibly deteriorate, black veins receding wherever it got too close to Trump. It was literally dying from his presence. "It's like they're allergic to winning," Trump quipped. But then his expression grew serious. "But listen, this is important, very important. We think this could be the solution. My DNA, something in my genetics, it's the key to beating this thing. The scientists, brilliant people, really brilliant. They're working on it right now." He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a series of small bandages in the crook of his arm. "Dr. Wright, show them what we prepared." The scientist retrieved a reinforced metal briefcase from beneath a desk, opening it to reveal 6 vials of dark red blood. Each one carefully cushioned and temperature controlled. "This is it, folks. The good stuff. My blood, and believe me, it's the best blood you've ever seen. The doctors, they can't believe it." He paused, his expression becoming uncharacteristically tender. "Bobby's waiting for these in Greenland. Beautiful place, Greenland. Nobody thought we could do it, but we got it. Got Canada too. Made them both states faster than anyone thought possible. 51 and 52. Historic numbers, really historic." Dr. Wright carefully sealed the briefcase and handed it to Marcus, who accepted it with the reverence of someone handling sacred artifacts. "Bobby, great guy, really great guy. He's got this incredible lab up there, state-of-the-art, everything. He knew, you see. He knew something was coming. That's why we moved so fast with Greenland. The media, they laughed. But who's laughing now?" Trump straightened his tie, a gesture so familiar it almost made the apocalypse feel temporary. "You get these samples to him, whatever it takes. He'll know what to do." Kate stepped forward. "But, Mr. President, shouldn't you come with us? If you're the key to—" "Can't do it," Trump cut her off, shaking his head. "Melania's waiting. My beautiful Melania. You should see her, still gorgeous even now. She's holding down Mar-a-Lago with a group of survivors. We built a wall around it, a big, beautiful wall, 50 feet high, solid concrete with gold trim. Nobody builds walls like we do. Nobody. Those infected, They just bounce right off. And the moat, filled with alligators, Florida alligators, the best alligators, turn the whole place into a fortress. Nobody builds fortresses like we do, believe me. His eyes took on a distant look. I made her a promise. He turned back to us, his voice taking on that commanding tone we'd heard in so many speeches. You have the most important job anyone's ever had, more important than being president. And believe me, that's pretty important. Get those samples to Bobby. He's got everything set up. We're going to beat this thing, folks. We're going to beat it so hard, your heads will spin. The creature's dying screams had finally stopped, leaving an eerie silence in the bunker. Through the windows of the command center, we could see the first hints of dawn breaking over the ruins of Washington. Trump looked at each of us one last time, then smiled that familiar, confident smile. "Make America great again," he said confidently. His fist clenched in that signature way, raised slightly, thumb out, knuckles whitened with determination. The same gesture that had rallied millions before the world changed. The walk across the White House lawn was like watching a force of nature in a perfectly tailored suit. Trump led our group through the infected-filled grounds, his mere presence creating a corridor of safety. The altered came at us in waves, their corrupted bodies moving with that terrible, jerky speed we'd come to fear. "Beautiful helicopter, isn't it?" Trump remarked casually, as if we weren't surrounded by writhing, dying monsters. "I know helicopters. Nobody knows helicopters better than me. This one," he patted the fuselage. "Special modifications. Very special. The best." He saw us safely aboard, then stepped back onto the lawn. The last thing we saw as the helicopter lifted off was Trump walking back toward the White House through the crowd of infected, a path automatically clearing before him, his red tie bright against the dawn sky. The helicopter dropped us at a secure airstrip where a military transport plane waited, its engines already spinning up. The flight to Greenland was surreal, crossing over cities where fires still burned, past storm systems that twisted in impossible ways, and finally over the vast white expanse of America's newest state. The military installation that grew larger in our windows was unlike anything we'd seen before. A sprawling complex of gleaming buildings and advanced technology, all of it built into the ice itself. Bobby Kennedy Jr. met us on the runway, looking exactly like his campaign photos, but with a few more worry lines around his eyes. When Marcus handed him the briefcase, his hands trembled slightly. "Mr. Trump always had a flair for the dramatic," he said, managing a smile as he opened the case to check the vials. "But this time he might have just saved the world." As we watched Kennedy's team rush the samples to their lab, I couldn't help but think about Trump, probably already coordinating his return to Mar-a-Lago, to his fortress, and his big, beautiful wall, and his Melania. Somewhere beyond the horizon, storm clouds still churned with that sickly green lightning, but for the first time, they seemed to be retreating from the light of a new dawn.